The Wild West ended over a century ago, but many of its characters live on in pop culture. This enduring popularity highlights the fascination with lawmen, outlaws, frontiersmen, and folk icons who made their mark on history. Over time, we might have romanticized this era, and Hollywood has certainly contributed to this image, so our perception of the Old West might not be entirely accurate. Despite the myths, the Wild West still captivates history buffs. Occasionally, new discoveries shed light on events long thought to be settled.
The mysterious death of Johnny Ringo. Johnny Ringo was an outlaw known for his leadership among the Cochise County Cowboys, a loosely affiliated group of gunmen. The Cowboys gained notoriety for their conflicts with the Earp brothers, culminating in the infamous gunfight at the OK Corral, where 3 cowboys met their end. Less than a year after this confrontation, Johnny Ringo was found dead with a gunshot wound to the head, prompting enduring speculation. Who was responsible for his death? Wyatt Earp was a primary suspect due to his motive, stemming from Ringo's suspected involvement in the assassination of Morgan Earp and the attempted murder of Virgil Earp. In the 1920s, an aging Earp allegedly confessed to the killing to several writers, but the timelines do not align. By the time of Ringo's death, Earp had already departed Arizona after his well-known vendetta ride. Doc Holliday was also considered a potential avenger, but he was located in Colorado at the time. Buckskin Frank Leslie and Michael O'Rourke were other suspects, though evidence supporting their involvement remains largely anecdotal. The coroner's investigation initially ruled Ringo's death a suicide, a conclusion widely disputed. Critics pointed out inconsistencies. Why was Ringo's cartridge belt found upside down? Why was there a small piece of scalp missing from his head? Crucially, why were there no signs of gunshot residue on his temple? These questions fueled skepticism over the suicide theory, leading many to believe the county's ruling was an attempt to close the case on the unsolved murder of a notorious criminal. In 2002, author Steve Gatto published a biography on Johnny Ringo, where he supported the suicide verdict and offered plausible explanations for the lingering mysteries. Gatto proposed that Ringo may have worn his belt upside down due to intoxication. He suggested that John Yost, the man who discovered Ringo's body, might have taken a piece of scalp as a memento. Most significantly, Gatto argued that the absence of mention regarding powder, burns in the coroner's report, was due to the advanced decay of Ringo's body, rendering such evidence inconclusive. The conflicting accounts surrounding Johnny Ringo's death underscore how historical narratives can be shaped by speculation, folklore, and conflicting testimonies. The enduring mystery continues to capture public fascination, reflecting broader themes of justice, violence, and frontier justice in American history. As historians and researchers continue to explore new evidence and interpretations, the true circumstances of Johnny Ringo's demise remain elusive. The ongoing debate serves as a reminder of the complexities involved in reconstructing historical events, especially those clouded by myth and ambiguity. How did Davy Crockett die? Davy Crockett, often celebrated as the king of the wild frontier, has become one of America's most enduring folk heroes. His adventurous life was first brought to public attention through newspapers, almanacs, and plays, and later gained even more popularity with a 1950s Disney miniseries. A significant part of Crockett's legend revolves around his death. According to popular accounts, he died heroically during the Battle of the Alamo, fighting against Mexican troops. However, this narrative was challenged in 1955 when author Jesus Sanchez Garza published a book with a different claim. Based on purported memoirs of a Mexican officer named José Enrique de la Pena, Garza's book suggested that Crockett was captured and executed along with several other men. Initially, Garza's book received little attention. It wasn't until 2 decades later, when the book was translated into English, that it caused a significant uproar in the United States. Historians rushed to defend Crockett's heroic image and raised several concerns about Garza's credibility. One major point was that the book was self-published. Additionally, Garza never explained how he obtained De La Pena's memoirs, and the timing of the book's release, shortly after the Disney show, seemed suspect to many. These factors led numerous historians to dismiss Garza's account as unreliable. However, the debate took a new turn in 2000 when a forgery expert declared the memoirs to be authentic. David Gracie from the University of Texas at Austin analyzed the materials and watermarks of the papers, finding them consistent with those used by the Mexican army during that period. He also found no evidence of tampering within the 680-page document. While this verification does not necessarily confirm the events described in the memoirs, it does suggest that they were written by someone present at the Battle of the Alamo. This revelation adds a layer of complexity to Crockett's story, prompting a reevaluation of the historical narratives surrounding his death. Examining this controversy highlights the challenges historians face in verifying the authenticity of historical documents and accounts. The contrasting stories about Crockett's fate reflect broader themes in historical research, where legends often intertwine with facts, making it difficult to separate the two. The ongoing interest in Crockett's life and death underscores the lasting impact of historical figures on cultural memory. It also illustrates how new evidence can reshape our understanding of the past, even decades or centuries later. As historians continue to investigate, the true story of Davy Crockett's final moments may become clearer, offering deeper insights into this iconic figure's legacy. The Mummy of the Old West. In the 1970s, the crew of the TV show The $6 Million Man was searching for a location to film scenes set in an abandoned carnival. They chose the Pike, a defunct amusement park in Long Beach. During filming, the crew needed to move a mannequin hanging from the gallows in the House of Horrors. When they pulled on it, an arm came off, revealing a human bone inside. To their astonishment, they realized the mannequin was actually a mummified corpse. The mummy was identified as Elmer McCurdy, an outlaw from the late days of the Old West. McCurdy had died in 1911 in an altercation following a failed train robbery. With no one to cover his funeral expenses, the undertaker who embalmed him decided to keep the body, dress it up, and display it to recover his costs. McCurdy became a popular exhibit, known as the Embalmed Bandit. Over the years, McCurdy's body was featured in many carnivals and sideshows. During this time, his skin hardened, his body shrank to the size of a child, and he was covered in several layers of glow-in-the-dark paint. This was how the TV crew discovered him in 1977. Finally, McCurdy was laid to rest in the Boot Hill section of Summit View Cemetery in Guthrie, Oklahoma, next to fellow outlaw Bill Doolin. Examining this story further, it highlights the complex and often macabre ways in which history and entertainment intersect. McCurdy's posthumous journey reflects broader themes of how society treats the past, especially when it comes to sensational and tragic figures. His body becoming a sideshow attraction reveals much about the cultural practices of the time, where the lines between history, entertainment, and exploitation were frequently blurred. The discovery of McCurdy's remains by a TV crew decades later underscores the enduring fascination with the Old West and its outlaws. It also illustrates the bizarre turns history can take, where the remnants of one era resurface unexpectedly in another. McCurdy's final burial, after such an unusual journey, brings a sense of closure to his story, allowing for a deeper reflection on the ways in which we remember and memorialize the past. This case also prompts consideration of ethical issues in historical preservation and the treatment of human remains. It serves as a reminder of the importance of respecting individuals' stories and the need for careful stewardship of historical artifacts, even those as unconventional as Elmer McCurdy. Who killed Pat Garrett? The circumstances surrounding the death of Sheriff Pat Garrett have long been shrouded in mystery, with many, including his descendants, questioning the official account. Garrett was killed on February 29, 1908, in Las Cruces, New Mexico, while traveling with two men, Jesse Wayne Brazel and Carl Adamson, to settle a land dispute. Garrett had leased a ranch to Brazel, who used it for goat grazing against Garrett's wishes. They eventually agreed to terminate the lease if a buyer could be found for Brazel's goat herd, which is where Adamson's involvement came into play. For reasons that remain unclear, Brazel shot Garrett and then surrendered, claiming self-defense. He was acquitted after a one-day trial, and Adamson, the only eyewitness, was never called to testify. This version of events raised suspicions and led to speculation about a possible conspiracy to kill Garrett, potentially orchestrated by rancher W. W. Cox to acquire Garrett's land. Notorious gun-for-hire Jim Miller was also rumored to have been involved, possibly lying in wait for Garrett and his companions. In his 1974 biography of Pat Garrett, historian Leon Metz noted that Garrett's family believed Carl Adamson was the actual killer. Regardless of who fired the fatal shot, many believed Brazel was chosen to take the blame because he had a credible background and a clean record. In 2017, a new piece of evidence emerged: Pat Garrett's long-lost coroner's report. Discovered by an employee of the Dona Ana County Clerk's Office while sorting through old records, the report was signed by 7 members of the coroner's jury and concluded that Wayne Brazel killed Pat Garrett. It remains to be seen whether this new evidence will lend more credibility to the official account of Garrett's death. The discrepancies and unanswered questions in Garrett's death reflect broader themes of power struggles and land disputes that were common in the Old West. The involvement of multiple figures with potentially conflicting interests adds layers of intrigue and suggests that the true story might be more complicated than the official narrative. As researchers continue to uncover more information, our understanding of figures like Pat Garrett and the events surrounding their lives and deaths can become more nuanced and accurate. This ongoing investigation into Garrett's death serves as a reminder of the enduring fascination with the Old West and its legendary characters. It illustrates how historical research can challenge long-held beliefs and bring us closer to the truth, even in cases over a century old. Did Butch Cassidy make it out of Bolivia? As one of the most legendary figures of the Wild West, it is unsurprising that many myths surround Butch Cassidy, the leader of the infamous Wild Bunch. Numerous stories emerged, particularly following his death, which remains somewhat mysterious. On the run from the authorities in South America, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid were reportedly killed in 1908 during an altercation with Bolivian police. However, local officials didn't identify the bodies as Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, referring to them only as 2 bandits who had robbed a payroll transport. They were buried in unmarked graves in San Vicente, and subsequent efforts to locate their remains and match their DNA were unsuccessful. This led to speculation that Cassidy survived the incident and lived on under a different name. In the 1970s, a new theory emerged, primarily advocated by author Larry Pointer. He suggested that Cassidy had taken on the identity of William T. Phillips, an author who published a biography of Butch Cassidy in 1934, titled The Bandit Invincible. Proponents of this theory argued that the book contained intimate details that only the notorious outlaw himself could have known. This theory persisted for decades until 2012, when Poynter revised his stance. Researcher Jack Stroud introduced a new hypothesis, proposing that William T. Phillips was actually the alias of a man who had been imprisoned with Cassidy in Wyoming State Prison, specifically one William T. Wilcox. The similarity between the names and the strong resemblance between Wilcox's mugshot and later photographs of Phillips supported this new theory. The mystery surrounding Cassidy's death and possible survival exemplifies how legends can grow and evolve over time, influenced by new interpretations and discoveries. This case also highlights the role of historical research in separating fact from fiction. The use of modern techniques, such as DNA analysis, alongside traditional historical methods, underscores the ongoing efforts to clarify historical narratives. The debate over Cassidy's fate is a testament to the complexity of piecing together the past, especially when it involves enigmatic figures like Butch Cassidy. Whether Cassidy died in Bolivia or lived on under an assumed name, his legacy continues to captivate the imagination, illustrating the enduring power of Wild West mythology. Where to bury John Wesley Harden? John Wesley Harden was a notorious figure in the Old West, known for being one of its most dangerous gunfighters, with claims of up to 42 kills. According to legend, Harden once shot a man simply because he was snoring. His life ended in 1895 when he was killed by John Salmon in El Paso, Texas, where he was subsequently buried in Concordia Cemetery. A century later, an unusual legal dispute arose over Harden's remains. A group from Nixon, Texas, arrived at the El Paso Cemetery with an order to exhume Harden's body, intending to re-inter him in their town. However, they were confronted by local officials and historians who quickly secured an injunction to halt the exhumation. This event triggered years of legal battles and appeals until a court ultimately decided that Harden's body would remain in El Paso. The group from Nixon claimed to represent Harden's descendants, despite none of them residing in the town. They argued that Harden, as a family man, should be buried in the place where he married his first wife and fathered his children. They believed that the descendants should have the final say in determining his burial site, emphasizing the importance of family ties and legacy. On the other hand, the El Paso contingent viewed the Nixon group's efforts as a publicity stunt designed to attract tourists to Nixon. They contended that since Harden's funeral expenses were paid by his lover, Beulah Morose, her descendants should have the ultimate authority over his burial. This legal dispute highlights the complexities of historical legacy and the differing perspectives on how to honor the dead. The controversy also underscores the ongoing fascination with Old West figures and the lengths to which communities will go to claim a piece of that history. The arguments from both sides illustrate the tension between preserving historical authenticity and leveraging historical legacies for economic and cultural gain. In the end, the court's decision to keep Harden's body in El Paso honored the historical context and local sentiments, while also acknowledging the complexities surrounding his life and death. The Deep Creek Murders. In 2013, former Idaho representative and amateur historian Max Black made a significant historical discovery related to a double murder that occurred over 120 years prior. The incident took place in 1896, during a minor conflict known as a sheep war in Twin Falls County, near the Idaho-Nevada border. A sheep war refers to disputes between shepherds and cattlemen over grazing rights, often leading to tensions and conflict. In this particular event, two Mormon sheep herders, Daniel Cummings and John Wilson, crossed into Cassia County, traditionally cattle territory, to graze their sheep. Tragically, their bodies were found a few weeks later. The main suspect in their deaths was Jackson Lee Davis, better known as Diamond Field Jack. He was quickly convicted and sentenced to execution. However, before his sentence could be carried out, two other men, Jim Bauer and Jeff Gray, confessed to the killings. They claimed they acted in self-defense after being threatened by the sheep herders. In contemporary times, Max Black used court records to pinpoint the location of the crime. With the help of a metal detector, he found a .44 slug at the site. Seeking further verification, he consulted a local firearms expert. Interestingly, the expert had recently been shown a rusted 1878 Colt Frontiersman found in the same area. Black became convinced that this firearm belonged to Jim Bauer, who purportedly lost it during the altercation. The gun was of the correct make and model, and had its sight filed off, which matched historical descriptions. Analyzing this discovery further, it sheds light on the turbulent history of land disputes in the American West. The sheep wars were part of a larger pattern of conflicts over land and resources between different groups of settlers. These conflicts often reflected deeper economic and social tensions of the time. Diamond Field Jack's case, in particular, highlights the complexities of frontier justice and the challenges of establishing law and order in a rapidly changing environment. It also underscores the importance of historical research and the use of modern technology to uncover the past, contributing to a more nuanced understanding of American history. The death of Wild Bill Longley. Wild Bill Longley claimed to have ended the lives of 32 individuals. However, he was known for spinning many tales about his exploits, many of which were likely exaggerated or fabricated. For instance, he once claimed to have shot 8 black people after losing a horse race bet. In another story, he supposedly survived a lynching attempt when a bullet cut the rope he was hanging from. Longley was reportedly executed in Giddings, Texas, in 1878. By that time, he had converted to Roman Catholicism and reduced his claimed kill count to 8. According to legend, his family bribed the local sheriff to use a trick rope during the execution. The story goes that the casket was filled with stones and that Longley lived out his remaining years in Louisiana under a different name. Forensic anthropologist Douglas Owsley began investigating this legend in 1986. The primary challenge was locating Longley's casket, as he was buried in an unmarked grave outside the town's cemetery. After 15 years of searching, Owsley, with the help of geologist Brooks Elwood, found the grave. It contained bones rather than rocks, a promising start to confirming Longley's execution. Owsley then enlisted a DNA lab to analyze the remains. They extracted a sample from a tooth and matched it positively to Helen Chapman, one of Longley's sister's granddaughters. Additionally, the casket contained a Catholic medal and a celluloid flower, items Longley was known to have carried with him to the scaffold. These findings confirmed that Wild Bill Longley was indeed executed that day. Longley's life and death reflect the complex narratives of the American frontier. His stories, whether true or not, reveal a fascination with the larger-than-life personas that emerged during this era. The blending of fact and fiction in Longley's tales is indicative of how legends are born and persist over time. Moreover, the meticulous work of forensic anthropologists and modern technology highlights the importance of scientific methods in uncovering historical truths. The use of DNA analysis in this case not only solved a long-standing mystery, but also demonstrated how historical investigations can benefit from contemporary scientific advancements. No pardon for Billy the Kid. In 2010, the governor of New Mexico considered a potential pardon for Billy the Kid, one of the most infamous outlaws in American history. This discussion stemmed from an alleged pardon offer made to Billy in 1879 by Lew Wallace, then governor of the New Mexico Territory and the author of Ben-Hur. Wallace purportedly offered the pardon in exchange for Billy's testimony before a grand jury regarding a murder he had witnessed. Although Billy upheld his part of the agreement, Wallace inexplicably failed to honor the pardon. Fast forward to 2010, as Governor Bill Richardson's tenure neared its end, he contemplated issuing the long-delayed pardon for Billy the Kid. This consideration sparked intense debate, even more than 130 years later. The descendants of Sheriff Pat Garrett, the lawman who ultimately killed Billy, were vehemently against the pardon. They argued that Billy was fundamentally a murderer of law enforcement officers, and that pardoning him would unjustly mar Garrett's legacy. Governor Richardson eventually decided against granting the pardon. He acknowledged the historical evidence indicating that a deal had indeed been struck between Wallace and Billy. However, Richardson was not privy to the reasons Wallace had for reneging on the offer. He also weighed the fact that Billy continued his criminal activities and killed 2 lawmen after the deal fell through. Analyzing the situation more deeply, it's clear that the legacy of Billy the Kid is complicated. While he is often romanticized as a Robin Hood-like figure in popular culture, historical records reveal a more nuanced character. Billy was a product of his turbulent times, involved in the violent Lincoln County War, a conflict marked by lawlessness and shifting alliances. His reputation as both a folk hero and a criminal reflects the complex social and political landscape of the American frontier. Governor Wallace's failure to pardon Billy, despite the agreement, might have been influenced by political pressures or a reassessment of the outlaw's threat to public safety. Similarly, Governor Richardson's decision to deny the pardon in 2010 took into account not only historical records, but also the potential implications for modern perceptions of justice and law enforcement. What happened to the real Jesse James? Much like Butch Cassidy, Jesse James achieved legendary status that led to persistent rumors of his survival. In 1882, James was killed by Robert Ford, a former member of his gang who sought to claim the bounty on the outlaw's head. The public response to James's death was mixed. While some viewed Ford as a traitor for shooting James in the back, others saw it as justice served. Ford himself met a violent end 10 years later when he was gunned down by Edward Capehart O'Kelly. Speculation about Jesse James faking his own death, possibly with Ford's assistance, to escape capture began circulating soon after his demise. The theory suggested that the body photographed after the shooting was actually someone else's. This idea gained traction in the late 1940s when J. Frank Dalton, claiming to be the real Jesse James, emerged at the age of over 100. Historians and biographers generally dismiss the claims of James's survival as unsubstantiated folklore. Despite this, the theory persisted over the decades. In 1995, to put an end to the speculation, Jesse James's grave was exhumed for mitochondrial DNA testing. Although the remains were poorly preserved, mtDNA samples from 2 teeth and 2 hairs were successfully extracted. These samples were then compared to DNA from known maternal relatives of Jesse James, confirming a match. Despite the scientific evidence, belief in James's survival continued. In 2000, a court order was issued to exhume J. Frank Dalton's supposed grave after years of legal battles. However, due to a mix-up with headstones, the wrong body was unearthed. complicating efforts to resolve the mystery definitively. The enduring fascination with Jesse James's life and death underscores the allure of outlaw figures in American history. As advancements in forensic science continue, there may yet be further attempts to conclusively lay to rest the lingering questions about Jesse James's final fate. As we've explored these fascinating tales from the Old West, it's clear that history continues to unfold even centuries later. These stories not only captivate us with their drama and mystery, but also remind us of the enduring impact of the past on our present.
Please like and share if you find the video content interesting and useful. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment below so as not to miss the upcoming interesting videos. Thanks for watching.